Dr. Mubarak Osei Kwasi is one of Ghana and Africa's revered scientists who specialize in medical research. He was the head of the virology department of the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research, virologist in charge of the first WHO Regional Conference Laboratory for Africa on poliomyelitis. He was once chairman of the Ghana AIDS Commission and a founding member of the commission. He says science is part of religion and has been one of the Islamic advocates against violence. Dr. Osei Kwasi, you're welcome to Inspirational Africans.
Thank you very much.
You have a tall list of, before we begin, a tall list of designations based on hard work over the years. We are told that you were the head of virology department of this institute that you served so faithfully. You were also the virologist in charge of the first WHO Regional Conference Laboratory for Africa on poliomyelitis. For polio, we know that you obviously has carved a niche for yourself. You have done a lot of work, and then as Ghana celebrates the designation as being a polio-free country, you have been instrumental in that. Now, before we begin, how did this journey start?
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. This journey has had many stages. Now, I'm not quite sure where to start from. I am the son of a farmer. My father was a farmer, my mother was a farmer. My education was financed in Ghana here to about 95% by my mother. My father introduced me to Ahmadiyya Secondary School. But my mother sent me there and financed my education from 1960 to 67. Passing through O-level and A-level. And then, after working a little bit in Ghana, I went to Germany. And I did my university education up to PhD level in the University of Hamburg, where I actually did up to master's level microbiology, precise medical microbiology. And my PhD, also in medical microbiology in the Department of Virology.
But Doc, growing up, did you envisage a day that we're going to become one of Ghana and Africa's revered scientists? Did you have that intuition that you want to go into science? I'm asking this question because in those days, we remember that no one dared take science as a subject because of the mathematical element and the fear factor.
To be honest with you, though in secondary school I studied science, physics, chemistry, biology, but I never knew that it would even enter Europe to study. When I completed sixth form, I wanted to study in Kwame University of Science and Technology. Unfortunately, the first attempt was not successful, to my disappointment. But there were people who were my mates. Some of them had better results than them. They were taking. And somebody told me that When I went there, I went alone to follow my application, and my English was not sweet. I'm sorry I'm saying this, because it will go into the public. I don't want to mention the year and keep it to myself.
Nana Doc, let's come into your work proper at Noguchi Memorial Institute, because that is the pinnacle of your career. You have a tall list of designations. Let me read some of them. You were head of virology department of this institute. You coordinated most research work and daily activities of the department. You worked on the isolation and characterization of HIV, HTLV, HGV, polio, tall list of designations. You conducted a number of research activities on immunization studies on polio, measles, and yellow fever. These were the diseases that were very prominent in those days. Aside that, you were a member of the National Polio Expert Committee responsible for final classification of all AFP. And then one area of interest to me personally is that you are a founding member of the Ghana AIDS Commission. Before we go step by step into all that, why the interest in polio?
My master's and PhD were on polio. I was made to work on how to make viral vaccines. So when I completed my PhD, I was a vaccinologist. That means I possess the capability of making viral vaccines. When I was doing my master's, I read an article by one of the renowned Ghanaian medical officers, Professor Vosu Ama, who had published work on diseases which were thought to have been caused by polio. I was shocked. The number of children, the percentage that were having deformities that, though not based on laboratory work, but one could think fairly well that these were caused by poliovirus. So when I completed my PhD, I decided to come to Ghana.
So being a vaccinologist in those days, I'm sure you people weren't that popular. You could have decided to stay in Germany, where you had all the modern facilities and gadgets. Why did you decide to come home in the first place?
I was actually advised by the fourth Khalifa, as Mr. Tahir Ahmed,
the fourth spiritual leader of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community.
Yes, but he thought I am more needed in Ghana and I'll be more useful in Ghana than working in Europe. And I understood him that I was not going to expect to become a very rich scientist, but serving my country is part of service to God, as said by the Holy Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam.
Okay. So what were some of the strides you made in polio at Noguchi? Because then, in those days, it was a feared, disease, and then people ascribed all sorts of superstitious beliefs to the disease. What are some of the strides you made in demystifying that perception?
Through my training, I knew that there was no fear for me, and I didn't even consider it necessary to demystify anything. I knew what to do, and I came to do it.
How did you do it?
I established the polio laboratory in the virology department. When I applied, I said I would work on polio. And I worked on polio. I started working on polio. Later on, I added measles and yellow fever. HIV came in and other viral diseases. Polio because there were a lot of children having paralysis when I came in '84. I saw some myself. The pain in my heart, something that we can prevent with vaccines. Vaccines are available. Why should we let these children, some of them die?
Your predecessors know that there are common vaccines that can be made to stop the scourge.
Well, they were immunizing, but everything, there must be a strategy. One of the things that I found right from the onset was that some of our vaccines in the field were not potent.
How did you discover that?
Because the cold chain, the polio vaccine has to be kept under a cold chain from the manufacturer to the cold room where you store it, from there to the field where you are going to use it. It must be under a certain temperature, best under 8 degrees. But I would say preferably under 4 degrees, but not frozen. We went to the field, picked vaccines that were being used, brought them to the lab, we tested them, and found them to be useless. That means the cold chain had not been kept. So we alarmed the Ministry of Health. The result was that the ministry sent all the vaccines that were coming into the country to Noguchi. And we kept them in our cold rooms. We had 2 cold rooms reserved for me to keep the vaccines. And whenever they wanted to send vaccines to, say, Bolga, they would bring a vehicle here and take the vaccines to Bolga. And to my surprise, the mode of transport was not suitable. So I drew the attention to a Japanese colleague, a virologist, and he sent a message to Japan that we need a vaccine carrier. So the Japanese sent us a vehicle. They sent it to the Ministry of Health to carry vaccines from Noguchi Institute to wherever they want to send the vaccines.
You have been, in effect, been instrumental in the polio-free designation success. How do you feel now?
First of all, I want to say that I didn't do it alone. We're a team.
But when everybody talks about polio, it has become synonymous with Dr. Mubarak.
That is what we sometimes do, but there are certain things you don't do them alone. I didn't do them alone. People from the Ministry of Health collaborated with me. There was so much cooperation. My staff, technicians, they collaborated with me, they cooperated. We went to the field. For example, Ashama, the health post or health center at Ashama, that is where I started my field work.
Okay.
The nurses there were very, very helpful.
Okay.
And I would like to commend such people.
Right. Now, Doc, let's talk about one dreaded disease. We may say that of late, the stigma levels have gone down. because of a lot of interventions aimed at reducing the stigma that was associated with it, that is HIV/AIDS. We are told that you did a lot of work in HIV and AIDS. What did you actually do?
What I would say is that we, the staff of the virology
but I'm
department,
interested in what you did.
You see, scientists don't work in isolation. No good scientist works in isolation, especially when it's laboratory work. Somebody goes to the field, takes blood samples, brings it to the lab. Sometimes I do it myself, and we work as a team on it. But talking about AIDS Commission, you may be surprised to know that the first person that published anything in this country about AIDS was the late Maulvi Wahab Adam. In 1982, he published in the mouthpiece of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community guidance about a new disease that had started strongly in United States and some parts of Europe. So he was the first to talk about AIDS in Ghana. And what happened was that when I came in and were talking of AIDS in Africa, he formed a committee in the Jamaat. We educated missionaries and leaders of the various groups in the Jamaat. The women's group, Lajna Maila, Majlis, Kudama Ahmadiyya, and Ansarullah, with their heads, to educate members of the Jamaat and whomever we could reach. And we talked about it in the mosque. He did a wonderful work. We went with him up to Tamale to make workshops on the course of the Jamaat without calling anybody to give us money. And such things spread. So the government decided to send a team to study the AIDS Council of Uganda, which was doing at that time a lot of work. The team was headed by the present president, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. And my humble self, I was one of the technical people who went with him. We spent more than 1 week, I think about 10 days, going around Uganda, talking to people, and we were writing the report. When we came, he took our report to the cabinet. That was the year 2000. And the cabinet approved it and sent it to the parliament, and parliament approved, and the commission was born.
Right, Doc, you have been responsible for training of about 120 scientists currently working in the WHO. That's no mean achievement. How were you able to do that?
Well, when we did our studies, the second one that I'm talking about, it was published in the WHO Bulletin. People got to know of us. In 1991, WHO found the work we're doing here impressive. So they sent first one Professor Tomori from Nigeria to come and look at our laboratory, Professor Tomore is one of the best laboratory scientists and virologists Africa has ever produced. And he came and looked at our lab and wrote a report to Geneva, the WHO headquarters. Then they sent another scientist from Geneva, one Dr. Milstein, a lady. She also came to evaluate our lab and found it to be suitable for training of other scientists. So in 1992, WHO sent officials from Geneva to come and sign an agreement with the University of Ghana to make my laboratory a training center in Africa.
Right on.
But before that, it was made a reference laboratory.
You are alluding a lot to the Holy Quran, trying to tell viewers that there's no incongruity between religion and science, and you are quoting extensively from the Holy Quran. Can you give us other quotations, where the Quran, lends credence to the congruity between religion and science?
A lot of them. In Surah Al-Anbiya, Allah says, those who do not believe, that means addressing the disbelievers. Let's say today addressing the atheists. Do they not know that the heavens and the earth were one mass, and we caused them to explode, and out of it came the celestial bodies?
Look, quickly, for the benefit of our viewers, some of these terms are technical. The heavens and the earth were one mass and it exploded. What do you actually mean? Because you're a scientist, so you could...
Today we call that the Big Bang Theory. It is the belief of those people who say there is no God, that between 12 and 15 billion years ago, there was a small nebula mass of about few millimeters, which exploded. And out of the tiny bits, all the huge celestial bodies developed out of them. The interesting thing is that their brains cannot tell me how something like this got exploded, and this big F is one of the tiny bits that has developed itself to this size.
But some of them claim that, they
and the sun
into the world by chance.
And the sun also came out of it. There are certain other planets which are about so many times bigger than the Earth.
I want you to react quickly to this. They claim that the world came into existence by chance.
I've asked one scientist, one such scientist. I told him, a German scientist, I said, dismantle a Mercedes Benz, a saloon car, dismantle it and put it in a drum and keep rotating it for 1 million years. Do you think an assembled Mercedes Benz will jump out of it? He said no. You see, and the verse that I'm quoting from Surah Al-Anbiya continues by saying that, and after that, we created you out of water.
Created humankind out of water?
Yes, life out of water. And today, there is a proof that everything that has life originated from water, an aqueous medium.
We've unfortunately been told we are running out of time. Looking at the stage of Ghana's development, there is either lack of scientific investigation, lack of research into most of the problems confronting this country. You are a retired scientist. because of the lack of research, we have all sorts of associations with some of the problems that we have. We attribute most of these problems we are facing to superstition. What advice do you have for one civil society to government and the citizen?
I'll tell you one thing. This institute, Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research, is a national asset. A lot of research has been carried out in this institute. If those who matter would take it up, a lot of industries could be set up. The universities in this country have performed a lot of research work. They have become dusty in wardrobes and shelves. Do you know the science block which Kwame Nkrumah started? It remained uncompleted until His Excellency John Ajekum Kufuor became the president of this country. How many years? From 1966 to what? 2001. Before it was completed. When one government is overthrown, we do not continue what they were doing, which were good. That is the bane to our progress.
So you heard it all. That is Dr. Mubarak Osei Kwasi, a revered scientist, let me say one of Ghana and Africa's revered scientist. He worked at the very institute, Noguchi Memorial Center for Medical Research, and is now retired. He's told us a lot and is food for thought for all of us. When one government is overthrown, projects that could inure to the benefit of the country are not continued, and he laid emphasis on scientific projects that could turn the fortunes of this country around. So till we come your way again on Inspirational Africans, Assalamu alaikum, may the peace and blessings of Allah be on us all.
Amen.